Hello everybody, it's Bumblewoot here once again with another video, and I know what you're thinking. What is this on the screen? To my very small following on YouTube. Nope, this is not the Hunter Classic. I got a bit distracted with my Xbox, and this is kind of the main reason. This is Forza Horizon 4, and I really kind of wanted to make this video, and I plan on making a few more. I kind of want to do some recording on the Xbox, see how it goes. So this is kind of like first attempt with it, but I really want to make this video. And what this video is about is sort of a tuning guide for like the average Joe, kind of like a tuning guide for dummies, because there's a lot of information out there on YouTube, a lot of really good videos on tuning and a lot of very poor videos on tuning. But what this one is about is just sort of like it's kind of targeted at those that are intimidated by the tuning, and let's kind of get the car going here, but intimidated by tuning or just don't have really the time for it. So there is a way where you can get into that tuning window and get a better tune than the stock tune in just about 2 minutes once you start getting good at it. Now, this isn't about perfection or anything like that. It's just kind of a few things to change from your stock tune. That'll be nice and quick and easy, and certainly do a considerable improvement over any kind of stock tune. So I'll get into it here just a minute, but yeah, here's the first. What you're going to need is a vehicle. Of course, this is the 1977 Trans Am, my favorite one so far in the game, with a nice little Star Wars dark side there. I didn't do the skin or anything like that, but it's in one of the, I think, the top skins for the car. I kind of really like it, but we're just going to reverse up in here to the house, because you got to go to either the Horizon Festival or to your house to get some of the tuning. So the first thing you need is pick a car you really like, and then yep, get to a place where you can do some of the tunes here. So yeah, first thing, you go to your garage. You want to go to your upgrades and tuning, and this part I'm not going to get too much into, but you got to do your custom upgrade and get the car setting to where you want to be. Now, one thing to mention is you most likely for this kind of basic tune, pretty much all-wheel drive. Just put most of your cars all-wheel drive anyways, like that, and just get them set to the letter, the class of car that you want. This one's currently B700. I should have made it like an A or something, but oh well. Well, that will do. But yeah, get it to where you want. But the important thing to know is to get the parts unlocked that are able to tune all the fine settings for all the different parts. And so yeah, just to reiterate, this is not about perfection. This is about getting those that are kind of intimidated about the tuning, or those that just don't have enough time. Get a nice little quick 2-minute one that helps a lot over the stock tune and doesn't rely on downloading like a lock tune that you don't really know what you're getting into it. So, and there's a bit of a learning in here, but this is like a really bit of a crash course on it. And yeah, I'm certainly intimidated a bit too, because so far I've just been doing YouTube videos on my little hunting game there that nobody basically plays, or very few do. But this is a great big massive game, so waiting to see who shows up to comment on this one. But so this is just geared at doing a quick 2-minute view or tune, and just to improve over that stock tune, because there's many people that will pick a car like that one looks great, take it out for a test run, and the first thing that happens is they try to brake in a turn in a race, and the car doesn't turn, it just keeps going straight, and they get mad at it and say this car's garbage, and they keep going on. Well, you can fix most of that really quick, and then you might actually start enjoying some of the cars that you might not have before. So it's kind of geared at that kind of thing, just kind of the rookie kind of level, and I'm by no means expert, but we're just going to get into it now. So you just want to go to your tuning window here, and we're going to go left to right, basically. So My rule of thumb is the least important's kind of on the left and the most important's all the way to the right. Now that's a big kind of statement there, but again, 2-minute tune. We try and keep it simple, and I could certainly get a lot of flack out of this one, but the first one's the tires. And basically what I'm going to say is this doesn't matter too much for if you're just coming in here for a 2-minute just to make it better. The PSI and the tires, a lot of this is just about road racing and just make it better over that stock tune. And you just leave it at 30 psi if you want, but a quick rule of thumb, colder you can lower the psi a bit. If it's warmer you can, in the summertime in the seasons here, increase it. You just go from 28 to 32. It doesn't really make a big difference for it. So in terms of our 2-minute quick tune, you can just leave it there, really tire. So that whole tab, if you're intimidated by all these different settings that go by here, well, the very first tab you can pretty much ignore. Boom, 30 psi just fine. 1 second. We got 1:59 left on our 2-minute tune, so that's one of the sections down. Nice and easy. You don't have to worry about it too much if you're just trying to improve over your stock tune. So the next one's the gearing. Many different ways to modify all this, but the only one you really need to concern yourself again for the quick 2-minute tune is just the final drive. Basic rule of thumb is you slide it over to the right, your car accelerates faster at the cost of top speed. You slide her down to the left, you get more top speed but slower acceleration. So you can see the graph down to the bottom right moves a little bit, but basically you just want to make it so that that graph kind of fits nicely there, so you get your gearing set to your top speed. The only time you really want to modify that, again for the quick tune, is just if you're doing one of the circuit races, which is a real quick race where you're just accelerating and turning a lot. You want to move it to the right there, and if you figure out what your top speed is for that race, see how on the left it says simulating there? It's going to say simulating for a minute. But if during the race it says 179 miles per hour there, if you're doing a race and you're never hitting that speed in one of those circuits, you might as well just keep moving it to the right there, because you might as well get the acceleration out of it. But that's just for those small, quick turning ones. So just quick rule of thumb again, just kind of fill it out there, make sure, just get it all fitted into the graph there. And that only takes a few seconds too. So that's 2 tabs done, right? So not very scary things at all there. The next one is alignment. This one's very complicated. But here again, we're just doing a quick one. I'm not actually going to go through cambering and front caster and stuff, because that does intimidate a lot of people on sort of thing. So I'm just going to give you some quick settings. Just go off, just do -0.5 on the front, -1 on the back. For a lot of cars, that's kind of fine. Don't worry about toe, and then usually caster about 5 degrees or so. There's many other YouTube videos and guys that will explain it way better than me on that if you really want to get into it. But for a 2-minute thing, if you're just trying to improve over that stock tune, you don't even need to change many of these for what you're really going to notice the difference on. I mean, like, again, this is just for the people that are just getting into it and just want to be able to improve their car a little bit in just like a couple minutes. So we're not really going to get into that too much. So that's just kind of like a little spot you can put down, and I mean, you don't even really have to change much of it. The default's probably fine. But those are some numbers to start with. The next 3 sections, so that's the first 3 tabs done. If you just do that, that just takes a few seconds. The next 3 sections are anti-roll bar springs and damping. That's all about the weight distribution in the car, and with the springs and everything like that, they anyways, yeah, the anti-roll bars, like how the weight's distributed in the cars. And then the important thing is here is actually we missed a number. What we're going to do is just apply our changes here, because we're going to go back out to the custom upgrade place, and you can go into anything here. You just need to go to a spot where you can see the stats on the left and push up on the toggle, and you need to see where it says front on the left. See where it says front 55%. Now that is just the weight distribution of the car, and that's kind of the only number you got to remember. So you guys remember that number, because I'm going to forget it here by the time I get back to the tuning thing. So let me know what it was. But that just means that 55% of the weight of the car is on the front, and so therefore 45% is on the back. So that's kind of the only thing that's important there. Is I'm not going to throw any math at you or anything like that, because this is, again, 2-minute tune. We're not going to do any kind of math equations or anything to confuse people. So I saved everything already. The gearing is where we left it. The alignments there, just normal. So the anti-roll bars, what you're going to do is, it says front and it says rear. So remember, what was that number again? 55%, so the front. Basically, you see this bar from right to left. So all the way to the right's 100% and all the way to the left is 0. So you can just eyeball this. Again, it's not very important. It's kind of like the tires. No amount of just moving the tires up and down by 1 psi is going to make me any better driver, because I'm not very good anyways. But same kind of thing here. I can just eyeball this. What you're doing is trying to get the front to about 55% on that bar. So I don't know. That's maybe 55%, and then the bottom one to be 45, which is kind of where it is already. So you could just kind of eyeball the thing here, because it's, for the 2-minute tune, just to improve it. You just want to get the weight distribution just kind of right. So we're just going to go with that. And that's kind of the same here. So there's another thing down. The next 2 tabs are the same. So same thing with the front springs in the rear. I must have rally on here. But anyways, we're still going to do the same thing, 55% for the front and 45% for the rear. And again, we're just eyeballing it. I probably went too high up here, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. You get the idea, instead of me playing around with it too much. But you just kind of eyeball it like that. Again, you're off a few pounds per inch. It ain't gonna matter anyways. Ride height, and then you go down to ride height. This is just the thing here. Just put it halfway for any kind of normal vehicle, really. If the car really rides low to the ground, just move it all the way to the high. But again, 2-minute thing, don't worry about it too much. Put it in the middle. Again, all this is improving over the stock, so you can't really go wrong here, because the stock values just usually aren't any good. So again, we're most of the way through it here. Damping's the same thing, 55% in the front, about there, and then 45% here. Something around here. You can do the math if you want, but again, not a big deal. It's from off a few numbers or on a few numbers. Again, that's they're in my racing, and the majority of people that are going to care about this video, they're racing. It's more human error than anything. So down here, this is the only complicated part, is the bump stiffness, the front and the rear. You move this to half of what the top one is. So the top one I stopped at 6.3, so we put about 3. And then when you get about halfway, so 3.1, you move it up a couple notches anyways from that. So you just put it halfway or whatever that number is. So 5.1, that's 2.5. And then bump it up a few notches. That's all that is. Don't worry about it too much. The next tab is Aerodynamics. So in Aerodynamics, I don't really worry about the front downforce on any kind of slow vehicle. You're kind of more concerned about it in S1, S2, I guess. The more important one is the rear. You put the rear on, the rear spoiler on. The faster the car goes, the more you kind of want this. So in the S1 and S2 and even the A-Class. But basically, you put a rear spoiler on, crank her all the way out of cornering. We're just going to leave it like that, keep it nice and simple. If you do put a front one on, just leave it on the middle, because if you put it too much towards cornering, it can cause some problems. So again, I know I've been jibber-jabbering a lot here, but without me talking, you could have went through most of these tabs here quite fast. So I mean, that would have been probably 60 seconds or so just to do that, and just sort of that changes is just kind of most of it's all an improvement over the stock value, so you're kind of win-win there. Now the last 2 sections are all over the way to the right. This is where it gets a bit more detailed, but this is where all the big changes happen to the vehicle. Like when you're doing a quick 2-minute tune, this is kind of the two areas where it will fix a lot. So when you're racing, there's kind of 2 states you're in. You're either going straight or you're turning, and anybody can drive straight, so that's not a big issue. So these 2 sections over here are about turning. Braking, of course, is going into the turn, and differential is accelerating out of the turn. That's what all these settings are going to be about. So braking, again, nice and easy. Don't have to worry about pressure at all. You could just keep it 100%. Me, I do 90%. It's just the pressure you're applying to the brake, and that can affect when the tires lock up. You can leave it at 100. It's kind of personal preference, not a big deal. So you kind of ignore that to keep it nice and simple. Now this is the big important slider here. If you ever had a, like what I was saying at the start of the video, if you ever had a stock tune and you're just trying out the car and you're trying to make a turn and you're braking into the turn and you're braking and you're turning, but you're not, you know, the wheels all turn left, but you're still going straight, that's kind of this kind of setting here. And that can be very frustrating, and people, you know, when they see that happen, they just kind of sell the car, dump the car, get rid of it, and try something else. But this is easily fixed. You just got to get the racing brakes where you can modify this sort of thing. And what that is when you're braking into a turn, you just keep going straight or very slight turn. There's too much braking force to the rear, and that means that the vehicle is stable. More braking to the rear, the vehicle's more stable, less chance of it sliding out. And a lot of the stock tunes, that's kind of where it sits, either 50% here or over to the right. So all you do here is you slide to the left. So the more left you go when you brake, the more ability you have to turn while you're when you're slowing down, going into the corner. Farther over to the left, though, the more difficult it becomes. So the more responsive the turning comes with the brake, but more chance of the rear of the car swinging out on you. So here, this is where you kind of fiddle around with. But as soon as you do this on that stock car that's driving you crazy, if you have several of them, and they just won't turn when you're braking, just slide over like this. And you can play around with this, but just throw 75% or 70%, even like 70% or so. And then just that one setting change like that, you take it out on the road and you brake and do a turn, you'll notice a world of difference. And all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, brand new car, like, way better. You just have to be careful, though, how far left it goes, because that's, you know, you lose stability, right? On the right side, there's more stability, but you can't really turn. On the left side, less stability, but you can turn. So it's kind of like a balancing act there. Yeah, 70% is kind of a good spot to start. So that's all that is, and that's one of the most important tabs there is. So that's the car turning while coming in to the corner. Braking in. So again, all these ones over here are pretty simple. They don't even matter all that much, just kind of the basics that I kind of went over there. And braking, that's a big one. That's going into the corner. And the next one, this is probably the most complicated one, but this is accelerating coming out of the corner, pretty much, is what these settings are. And now this is kind of the most complicated looking one. Actually, besides alignment's kind of complicated, but differential's definitely an intimidating one to look at. So there's 5 different bars. I'm going to make it nice and simple right away as much as I can. You got front, you got rear, and you got center. With front and rear, you see deceleration? Move both to 0%. Just throw them down there. Don't argue, don't ask why. 2-minute tune, throw them to 0. Get them right out of the way, ignore them. So then you got 3 bars here. And we're going to start at the bottom. So the bottom, it just says front and rear. So this is where, when you got all-wheel drive, this is how you distribute the power between the front and the rear. So if you move more to the right, the car is more like a rear-wheel drive car. If you move to the left, it's more like a front-wheel drive car. Now, both advantages and disadvantages each way here. And what happens is the more power you put to the rear, the more oversteer you get, the better turning you get, and the more turning responsive you get. So most people will bias, the default's bias to the rear here, about 65%. Most will do 70 to 90 because you just get better turning response while coming out of a corner, right? So this is all about coming out of the corner, pretty much. And that's where it typically sits. So we'll kind of throw it at 70 or 75 or so. And that's where I guess we'll come back to this in a second. But that's how most of them are going to be. You just kind of want to increase that a bit, because that will help you come out of the corner. Because when you come into the corner, you're braking, and then you get, with that braking tweak we did, you'll get better turn and responsiveness in it. And when coming out of the corner, if on those stock tunes, again, when you're coming out of the corner and accelerating, sometimes you're accelerating, but you're not turning, and that corner's still going, so you end up going into a tree or out into the ditch. This setting will help you accelerate out of the corner with maintaining ability to still turn by moving that to more to the rear. The danger of that is, again, a stability thing. The more to the rear it goes, the more chance that those back wheels are going to spin and spin out. So again, a stability thing. On this kind of thing, it all goes back to stability versus instability, where you can turn. The more power to the front, the more stable the car is. The more power to the rear, the more unstable it is, but the more ability you can turn. So if that makes sense. But most will move it to the rear bias there, so because it's usually better to be able to turn than not. So that's what they do. Now here, this is differential lock, low and high between the front wheels and the rear. So taking the front, for example, the front wheels are where the turning's happening. And what this is if you move it all the way to the right at 100%, that means the wheels are locked. The two front wheels, they will spin at the exact same rate, no matter what. They're always going to spin the same. And if you move it all the way down to 0%, that means the two wheels can spin freely of one another. They don't care what the other one's doing, really. So when it's lower, what happens is in a turn, the outside wheel gets more traction, and that's the one that gets power. But you can force both wheels to have power going to 100%. But the basics of it, again, for like coming back to the 2-minute tune, is when you come here, you move this to the right, you're going to get less turning responsive, but more power coming out of the corner. So more power over here, but less ability to turn. But when you bias the power to the rear, there's not a whole lot of power. There's only 25% power to the front tires anyways, so there's no sense in trying to get more power out of them, really. You might as well get the maneuverability. So usually you can go around like 35%, 30% or something down here, and on the left side that just allows you to turn better. That's more of an oversteer. Allows you to keep maneuvering out of the corner. So that's kind of where you move these. And then the same but opposite for the rear. Most of the power is in the rear. You're not really turning with the rear wheels, so you keep that higher, more to the power side. But you got to pick the right spot, because if you lock both wheels, this is more like a drift car. If they're locked to the same speed, they'll spin easier, right? And then you can throw your back end out. So 75 is usually not too bad. So you really want to keep it simple. Keep that 75. Throw that down a bit to the 30% range or so, and then bias more to the rear for the 2-minute tune. So that's pretty much it. So if you do those quick little things and then you save that and apply it to the car, you'll all of a sudden vast improvement over your stock tune. Nice and simple thing, not too complicated. It certainly isn't perfect. You're not gonna win any world records just throwing something together like this. But for someone that's doesn't even want to go in here because it takes too much time or too much effort, that doesn't take much. I know I kind of talking fast and trying to get through it in a certain amount of time, but you kind of can see how quick that is once you get a hang of it, because pretty much 2 minutes you can just kind of do that and get a vast improvement. I will go into a little bit more detail in here, because you might want to play around a little bit more with it, because sometimes you can bias to the front, and that makes it more of a front wheel drive, which gives you more actual stability when coming out of a corner, or when coming out of a turn, or coming out of a corner. Now you can't turn as much, but if you got that braking set correctly, and the track, and you can brake into the corner correctly, then you don't actually really need much turning when you're coming out of a corner. So you can actually increase your stability while coming out of a corner, and sometimes your acceleration by biasing more to like a front wheel drive, because then you're pulling your car's being pulled out of the corner instead of pushed out of the corner. And then you kind of reverse this sort of thing. You sort of bring it up here, kind of lock them together, and that's more of the car's being pulled out of the corner, which it can actually help increase your stability. But that's something to play with. You kind of can reverse those things, but to keep it nice and simple, keep your turning ability up by moving that to about 30% range. 75 is fine default. Get rid of all the deceleration, don't worry about that. And then rear bias, and you can play around with this. But 70%, 75, something like that. And then, you pretty much save your tune and away you go. And again, you can take this out and modify basically you're just looking to modify the braking or the differential there. So when you're out on the road, just drive around a little bit, you can pop right back. You don't have to go back to the shop or anything like that. You can do it right on the road and fix it. So that's pretty much that video. Super Crash Course. I kind of wanted to get that one out there because I do know there's people out there that are way too intimidated. I've tried some YouTube videos. The forum posts are much too complicated for them, and I know they're out there. I know there's at least one. So I did want to make this video. I do want to make more Horizon videos. I'm sort of got this idea of, they just came out with the track editor, so people can make their own routes and everything like that. So I was thinking about maybe doing kind of like a community spotlight on a few of them, some that are popular and some that are not well known or whatever, and kind of shine a light on them. Now, with my channel, it's not really a spotlight; it's more like a dim glow, like a little night light. But you know, I figured it might still be fun. So yeah. Let me know what you think of that. Yeah, I am hoping to do a bit more of the channel with Horizon and hopefully a few more other little Xbox things. But yeah, hope a lot of that made sense. And again, just to reiterate again, this is just Super Crash Course 2-minute tune just to fix a stock car and get people into that tuning window. Maybe if they get in there and do those little adjustments, they'll get more comfortable to play with it a bit more, and then learn a bit more and play around a bit more with the car. So that's all that's about. So I'm not actually sure how long this has been, but it's been pretty long talking. But anyways, thanks for watching. Everybody take care and have a good one.